So 1 year has gone by since I lost my sister, my only sibling, to cancer, and I wasn't too sure if I was gonna keep talking about grief on YouTube, but I actually feel like the people that I've met and the conversations that I've had throughout this whole time has been a massive part of like the support. And I've also learnt that one of the biggest helpers that I've had this whole year has been when I've met somebody who was really deep in grief like me, and we just had a super honest conversation about it and went through everything. And it was the most helpful thing that I did the entire year. So maybe we can do that together today as well. Like a year, it definitely has been what I've always said. I hope this is the worst year of my life, because it's been unreal. Like the things that you go through in that first year are undescribable. And so making a video back to me, I guess, or back to anyone who's right at the beginning of this, and also for all of us who are hitting milestones. I know it doesn't matter if it's a year, a month, 2 years, 20 years, it's still, I can't imagine it's going to change too much. So first of all, my big thing about grief that shocked me at the beginning was just how physical grief is. I don't know if that's been your experience, but I was chatting to my mum luckily the other day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this year anniversary, I just felt like my body felt it before my head or my heart. I just slept. It just was like I went into my son's room one day just to open his blinds in the morning, like they'd gone off to school, done the school run, and then I just led down on his bed and I was out, like I was asleep. And I think that my body was just like, shut her down, shut her off, she's needs to, something isn't processing. And I just, they always say, don't they, if you don't take a problem with your brain, it will just hit your body at a time when it's more inconvenient. So I felt it really physically. I've had, you know, dizziness, lightheadedness, panic attacks, awful. And I think you're just, because you're in that sort of trauma mode where your body doesn't understand that you're not trying to fight a bear, and it just puts you on this high alert and your heart's racing because you're just sort of lying in bed trying to process and think about that person sometimes. So I have found the last 2 weeks really physical, and at the beginning as well. Like I remember I've said, if this is the first video you've watched of mine, my sister died in hospice, so I was very, it sounds weird to say, but extremely lucky to have had that time, because I know if it's a sudden death, that's a really difficult, different trauma. Obviously being in a hospice is a whole world of its own of trauma, but we did have that time. And in the hospice, I remember I was like hobbling up and down those corridors. I had to keep taking breaks to go and stretch in the visitors room and do short yoga things, because it just hit me like my body felt like I'd been hit by a truck. And my tears stung my face, like so sore. And this year anniversary, I've actually found that the panic attacks have been stronger than I haven't been able to cry as much, which is very unusual for me because I'm a big crier and about everything, but it's almost like it's such a tight ball at the moment that I know it's going to just burst and come out. But I had a really nice day on the day. My two best friends and we went for a special walk. My sister doesn't have a gravestone. She was cremated, and we still have her ashes. And actually I should show you, my silly blouse won't let me. I will take it off in a minute, but I have not my blouse this bit of my blouse. I actually have my sister's ashes last week, just a few days ago, put into a tattoo. I didn't know you could do that, and as soon as I found out, me and my dad went and did that, because our next big thing is to scatter the ashes where she wanted them scattered. That's the place I went to with my two best friends and did a walk, and I cried a lot, but then again I just felt absolutely exhausted and I just went off to sleep. So I've got it's a minimalist yin yang, and the yin yang sort of references, obviously for me, I know it's got a lot of meanings. For me, it was kind of like, it's got her ashes just mixed in with the ink. It was like two halves of one whole. and balance, and finding that balance in life without her again, and taking the good with the bad. And that's what she taught me. Like, I take lessons from my sister all the time, and I guess you do as well if your loved one passed away of an illness, of like how she managed to stay present and happy, like literally in the worst days. And you know, like the day she got diagnosed, stage 4, that afternoon we took the kids swimming. You know, life is so surreal sometimes, and I feel bad. And what I wanted to talk about as well was, I don't know if I've coined this phrase, but basically like grievous guilt. And you know, like mum guilt, where you just feel really, really bad that if you take up anything, do anything for yourself or leave your kids, or you're not 100% there, and grievous guilt just felt to me like the exact only term I could use to describe how I felt about this year, about the fact that I've been so hurting so much and so fragile and so unavailable emotionally for people around me. That made me feel very guilty. And actually one of the biggest struggles I had, as well as obviously your first thought in the morning being, I can't believe my sister died, like I cannot believe it. After that there was a lot of awful things I was saying to myself. I really lost a lot of self-compassion because I felt so bad, and there was guilt that I'd lived. There was guilt that I was just not coping so well. Like I would get up, like you, if you follow me on Instagram, like I get up and I do things, but I'm going through emotions, and emotionally, and my playfulness, like I just felt so unable to really feel carefree. It robs you of a bit of that carefree ability. Your ability to feel light-hearted. And then I felt like my always analogy is Inside Out, and feeling like, I know there's a new one coming out and I'm just gonna have to go and see that. They should do like grievous version of it, because I feel like I'm sadness, and sadness is driving the ship. If you've not seen the movie, she has all her emotions in her head split out into little characters, and Joy is forever trying not to let sadness take the reins. And it's a lovely lesson in how sadness is so important. And that is something that, a quote that I do love, and I will pepper some quotes in that have helped me, because I don't know if we all get like that in grief, but you know, it was, when sadness comes, you have to say, hello sadness, you're welcome here. You're welcome here. You belong here, actually. And I shouldn't feel guilty about the sadness reigning sometimes. And gradually that has been something that I've got more of a handle of. And I'm very much an advocate of like chatting to my kids. I've got 3 children. They're 14, 10 and 7. So old enough to know a lot. And even if your kids are little, I was speaking to a mum the other day. He messaged me on Instagram and said, like, I'm parenting like, you know, a 2-year-old, and I'm just in this deep grief. And you know, I said, even for that little one, you know, just to sit and say, you're not making me sad. Mummy's sad about something that's really sad and that's happened, and that's totally how I should be feeling about that. But also, you know, saying to the children, it's okay for you to be happy. You know, you can be happy about other things and sad about mummy and or Auntie Mimi, and I can be sad about my sister, but I can be happy for other things. But I've had experiences, I've had some really great experiences this year, some real peaks. Like I got to go on this morning, very exciting for me, not about grief but something else, and it was a big moment for me in my career, something that I'd always wanted to do, and I've had it hit another massive milestone weirdly just yesterday, which was a huge career bucket list. And when I first got the news that was happening, I couldn't stop crying. I felt this grief hit me so strongly because I missed the person that I wanted to share it with the most, and that was then I got sad that I was sad, and then I felt guilty for myself, and then I felt bad about myself, and it was just this real difficult shift to I don't know if you felt it, and I'm really, really curious because it's something that I've not talked about with anybody. The sort of, I have this impression that hurt people. And I think that that sticks in my head a lot, like you're hurting other people, you're bad, you're worse. Look at all these people who aren't damaged, you don't have damaged lives, and they can just carry on, and you're worse than them. And actually you're not, because, you know, I still feel like I am actually, but I have to really remind myself and be straight with myself, I'm going through something, and that's okay. And I'm not giving people a hard time, I'm having a hard time, and all that stuff. And it's very hard to start believing it. So actually there was an amazing book, I listened to the audio book, it's called Radical Self-Compassion found it absolutely brilliant in terms of welcoming in pain and seeing yourself as, what I had to do a lot around was not being strong. And I'd been so strong for my sister, and my sister was so strong, and she was eternally strong right until the end. She was, and I carried on being so strong, and I took on a lot of responsibilities and felt the pressure of those responsibilities. You do have responsibilities, you know. I had huge responsibilities. I had to ring and tell people that, you know, their best friend had died, and, you know, awful responsibilities. And but then I carried this weight that I then had to look after these people, or make sure no friend didn't get a message, or tell them I'm thinking of them. I don't know, I just took on a lot of weight emotionally, that hidden load that we talk about with motherhood. Again, I took it on with grief, and it took me a long time, and a lot of I talk about my therapy in a minute, but I did start talk therapy after saying I wasn't going to. I did, and I love it. And he was like, "You're not strong, you're really fragile." And I was like, no, I'm the strong one. It's like, you're really fragile, and you have to let people know that you're fragile, because I was getting a lot of messages from others where I was supporting them still. So I had to just put up my boundaries, and I was like, do you know what, actually I need the looking after, and I'm really, really weak and fragile. And I cried in front of everyone. I was let everyone see me have this stuff that I would normally very much hide. I was like, I'm not going to do this in isolation. Everyone can just see it. Here's me, family. I am the panic attack, or crying one, and you all need to step into, either leave me alone or step forward with help and treat me like I'm very, very fragile. I have never heard so much about how strong and independent I am than when my sister died. And I was like, guys, are we bloody joking? Like, I was that strong because there was something special about sisters, and me and my sister were something special about us together. We were an energy together, and I lost half of my energy and a huge amount of my future and my foundation. She was my big sister. I'd always had her, always, every single situation, every single school day. We worked together. We text each other like 15 times a day. Like, I was at her labour. Like, she was my attachment person, and to lose that is suddenly going through life really differently. And I needed everyone to see that made me fragile, and within that fragility, then I didn't want people to didn't have to step in and help, but I needed to protect myself and put a little nice bubble around myself and my children, and really just start from ground zero up again, and start where I could in my home, and just go slow baby steps, and be compassionate to myself, which is hard. And that changed when I met somebody else who was really, really grieving. So we've all coped so differently. Like, some friends are like, absolutely fine, you know, this happened. Some friends are still processing. Some friends can move forward and take actions. Some of us are all over the shop, but everyone's somewhere different, and that's hard, because sometimes you want to feel, I've found that the year thing, I was like, we don't have any rituals yet for it, you know. It's like, sometimes there's rituals or traditions and they're familiar to you, but this year we had nothing, and we didn't want to put any pressure on each other to be together or anything. But I found that hard, because I'm quite a ritual person. Like, I want to know how I'm doing, and if there was a gravestone or something. So we will get to that point, but we just haven't got there yet. So it was I had the biggest panic attack ever a couple of days after. I just could barely breathe. I felt horrendous, and actually still having these panic attacks. I think my body's just, don't know what it's doing. But it sort of just hit me, and then I spent some time, we went through some of her stuff that we hadn't sorted through yet on that weekend, and that was really therapeutic, and threw a lot away, put a lot into memory boxes, and that was a lovely thing to have done that day. And then of course the tattoo was a lovely thing to have done. So there is a process of sort of self-mining your own brain for trying to bring up that love and compassion that I found hard, or you might not find hard. Be very interested to know. Also, there's this sort of desire to still feel signs or still feel signals, or try and reach them on the other side, as people call it. And I'm fascinated to know how curious you are in that type of thing. I think in our group, I'm the sort of one who's most curious about that. I feel like I've seen signs. Me and my sister gave each other a word, which was a lovely thing to do. So she gave me a word. If this word comes up, that's me showing you that I'm there, and I gave her a word. And the other day, both the words came up at the same day in really special ways, which was really the first time that had happened, which was nice. And I'm realistic. I've got my head screwed on. I don't think, like, you know, I'm not going to live my life through those signs, for those signs, but at the same time, getting them is lovely and they feel nice in the moment, and you're like, wow, I did get that word in a special way. And you know, me and her friends can message each other, I saw this, so this happened, that was Nay, that was clearly her doing that. And it's a lot of the time it's kind of just in that way, and sometimes it's deeper and more special, and people are like, oh my gosh, this happened, that was Nay opening that door. Or, you know, people who are like, you know, really asking that, oh my god, I need this to happen, and then suddenly things happen, and it's like, that's Naomi, my sister. So we still do that a lot, and I like it. I think it's really nice. I did go to the spiritualist church, and I did have a moment where they told me some messages that, to be fair, were super accurate and very secret things that nobody knew. Like, I went with one of my really, really good friends, and she was like, I don't know what the woman's talking about, and I was like, oh my god, I did. And it was stuff that had really been hard for me. And she said, this was okay, that was what she thought of that, this is what she thought of that, in her mind, communicating with my sister to me in the congregation of like a group of people. But it blew me away a lot. Would I be wanting to do that again? Probably, yeah. But I think everyone should do that, or am I 100% like sold? Like, I didn't have to pay for that. Like, that was just at a spiritualist church, and it just happens. And like, my friend was like, it was quite funny because she was like, everyone else was like crying like when she was talking, and you would just seem like you were really enjoying yourself. And I was like, I was, because I felt it was lovely to hear those words, and I get that. And I'm very balanced about it, I hope you can see, she says, but still enjoyed that process. So I think that whatever we can do, whatever we find healing for ourselves is the one grieving, go with it. But I found it hard not to always find that everyone kind of, it's just very lonely and isolating, because you might have a day when you're feeling a certain way and somebody else isn't. There's certain things, like my mum can go to certain places that I really couldn't go to, that I would find too difficult to visit. So we're all slightly finding our own individual path, and that's quite hard, because it would be lovely to feel like you were deep in it with someone else. And my parents have been really kind and said, you know, they understand that they're grieving together and I'm doing it alone while looking after children, which is kind of them to recognise. Honestly, I have no luck with technology at the moment. Battery's not going to die. So 1 year, I think I started approaching it by milestones. I don't want to feel this way. I just didn't want to feel that way. I just couldn't think I can go another week feeling this way. And it felt like clawing through treacle to get to where I didn't really know I could get to. But I think that you know, people describe it in all different ways, like waves of the sea, or you know, I don't know, like, you know, people say like, and then grief is always there and other things grow around it. I guess my experience of it is really to say that it does start with that physical, and then that emotional fallout could be a lot of self-sabotage or self worry and thinking you're doing it all wrong. And starting there was a good spot for me. And now we'll see what year 2 brings. But yeah, just say hi, and we'll all be here to support you. Whether you're in day 1, month 1, year 1, year 20, you know, I'm sure it all feels very raw still. Lots of love to you all. Bye guys.